How's my life? I feel like my life is really bad.
Our issues, our voices, our views. This is Politics in Black. What's happening, family? We are back in the new year, in 2023, the first broadcast. Happy New Year, fam. Welcome back. Friday, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's, Chad.
You know I got to turn up in 23.
I see you on 10,000.
Always. I'm so happy to be back in the new year, back behind the desk, back to the mission. We rested, we refreshed, and we ready to go. And today, I couldn't think of a better way to lead in the new year and start this off than the conversation we're about to have today with these two candidates that have been running on Reparations platform.
Let's get it. We got to get it. People want to say that reparations is a national conversation.
Oh,
it's national conversation, but it definitely involves local politics.
All politics are local. We know that. But first Friday, I just want to quickly recap 2022 for the people that might have missed what happened last year. We're going to get into it. Y'all stick with us. But first, just real quick, because we had a lot going on. The task force was still meeting. They dropped the interim report, the most significant report on Black America since the Kerner Commission. We are now in the proposals phase for the state task force.
Yes, we are.
We can't forget about SB 189.
SB 189, disaggregation of the data.
Disaggregation bill, Section 14, that language authored by the community volunteers and advocates of CJAC, Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, that will, for the first time in the state's history, and I think the first time in the nation's history, disaggregate Black and African American and data collection here in California starting next year. So that was huge. But we can't forget about the NAASD Summit.
The summit was the business.
It was incredible. We got one of our awards on the table here. This show won an award.
For our production team, let's shout them out. We got Dana, Tiffany, Marcus.
Absolutely. Great job,
Crystal,
everyone.
Lori.
Great job, everyone, last year, and continue the great work this year. We're going to have another award winner with us early on. But we also can't forget about AB 2296 and the governor's veto and getting that bill up out of here.
Sometimes you got to boot the legislation. It's not about just getting the legislation. Sometimes you got to get rid of the bad stuff. We did that too.
And we've been doing it all. We've been doing it all from top to bottom. So last year was a monumental year in the reparations movement, fam. And this year is shaping up to be even bigger. So,
I'm in Albany. In February,
Albany,
talking to New York State.
Come on now.
So I'm just saying, the year is getting off to a great and fantastical start. Let's get it.
That's right.
And we got to give credit to Morris Studios and Miss Felicia, the poetess, for always having us and keeping us in good time and good form.
Always keeping us right.
Yes, y'all.
Right. And so I forgot, if it's your first time here, I'm only half of the hosting team. My name is Chad Brown, sitting next to me. We've been having this conversation Friday, Jones. And I think Friday we're ready to get into it.
We're ready. Let's go.
Without any further ado, let me see if I can find Gabe's bio. I know this. Look, New Year, we've been off for a little bit, y'all. So we getting back into the swing of things here. We getting back. All right. So I don't know if you have it up. Do you have it up?
Let me help you out.
Okay, please help me out here.
So we have...
y'all can tell I'm rusty.
Gabe Piemonte, candidate for the 5th Ward, alderman of the South Side of Chicago.
That's right.
He is a journalist, a civic advocate who has dedicated himself to reparations and the local economic justice.
Yep.
He is a founding organizer of the South Side Community Federal Credit Union, a 20-year-old financial cooperative owned by freedmen with $4 million in assets and hundreds of loans to the Southsiders. He is a former president of the board of the Southside Center of Hope, the publisher of Pomerello magazine, and the former editor of Hyde Park Herald. Piemonte's platform for alderman includes establishing a Freedmen's Bureau in the ward and land redistribution.
Yeah,
so without further ado, let's get the candidate up in here.
Get on in here, Gabe. Come on in. There he is.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good afternoon, Gabe. Thanks for being here, brother. It's good to see you again.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and it is so nice to see both of you. Happy New Year!
Happy New
Happy New
Year. Happy
Year.
New Year. It's been a eventful start to the new year for you, right?
I
So
mean,
I would
Twitter
say
has been
so.
on fire with your name, to say the least, even though Twitter is not always IRL. It's not always in real life,
but you have announced
No, it's
that
not.
you have announced that you are a candidate, and I want to get into who you are and let the people get to know you, those who are not familiar with you, do not know you like we know you. But you've announced your candidacy for alderman there in Chicago's Fifth Ward. So Gabe, let's start there. Tell us about you. Tell us about the Fifth Ward. Tell us about your campaign for alderman.
and if I'm correct, the Fifth Ward, that was Obama's district, right?
Oh yes, oh yes. So
Okay.
I started as a journalist when I first moved down here 24 years ago, and one of my jobs was to follow the state senator, Barack Hussein Obama.
Who did not
I would
support
be
reparations, by the way.
who did not support reparations, and yeah, and so he was my neighbor for a long time. Technically, he still is, though he's never in the house. And yeah, so this is a very powerful and interesting district. It's a we separate the municipal political districts by ward boundaries, so we call them wards. And so in the Fifth Ward, we have the University of Chicago, which is a powerful, multi-billion-dollar endowment institution, founded on the, like many other institutions in this country, founded on the blood and bones of enslaved Black American citizens. We have on the south end of the ward, we have South Shore, and South Shore is home to many of the leaders in the Pan African movement.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of resources. We're on the South Lakefront in Chicago. Beautiful property. Obviously, it's predominantly Black. The Fifth Ward is 58% Black. So
Okay.
Hyde Park, the university has, there's a lot of white folks, a lot of Asian folks, and then a kind of a diverse mix, beyond that. And then as you go further south, there's a real disparity in terms of sort of what the north end of the ward is like, which is where the university is, and the rest of the ward.
Sounds like South LA with USC and
being a divider.
and being a divider. So I visually
No
I
doubt.
get that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. No doubt. It's a very similar, and in fact, it repeats itself over and over, right? All over the country. This is a kind of a typical sort of thing. So, one of the things that's a little different about the Fifth Ward, you mentioned Barack Obama, he has taken 19 acres of parkland that for a lot of freedmen is the only backyard they have.
Mm-hmm.
And so he took this lakefront parkland that people would drive, a couple miles to get to have birthdays, reunions, church, just hang out. And the most well-used part of the lakefront park, Jackson Park, he took, bulldozed, and he's building his center on that. And that has triggered a housing crisis that is overwhelmingly a freedmen housing crisis. And we were concerned about and when I say we, I'm not being like the royal we guy. I mean, literally, the community had conversations that were concerned about the impact in 2019 of this thing. So I tried to recruit someone to run. Nobody would run, so I ran myself. And the problems are just getting worse. So I ran again. I announced, and I started connecting with some of the folks in the reparations community that I've been in relationship with for the last several years. And we're calling this a Freedmen First campaign. That's our hashtag. Gabe45 is one hashtag. Freedmen First is the other one. We are centering freedmen, especially economic justice, in all our policies.
Yeah, thank you for that, Gabe. And the more I hear about Obama, the more I dislike the man. I'll throw that out there.
Maybe one day he'll respond to my public letter. Maybe one day.
I hope so.
My open letter.
But Gabe, I want to jump right in there. So Chicago's Fifth Ward, 58% Black. You, unless the contrast is off of my monitor here, are a white gentleman, correct? And I want to talk about your background. So tell us, your ethnic background, and then tell us why you feel you are a good choice to represent a predominantly Black ward such as Fifth Ward and a very important Black community as in Fifth Ward, Chicago.
I think that's an excellent question. I appreciate jumping right into it. I am Italian American, so my culture, my lineage is Italian American. That is the majority. If you did a DNA test on me, that's what you would get, and that's right. No, no freedman DNA would appear, to my knowledge. This is, as I said, 4 years ago, when we saw that the Obama Center was going to be this kind of development tsunami in the neighborhood, I made a list of 5 freedmen. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I actually wouldn't have used that term, but I made a list of 5 Black Americans who were friends of mine, lived in the ward. I called each one and I said, if you will support police reform and oppose the Obama Center being in our park, I will raise money for you. I will do, the comms work that I do for a living for you. I'll do everything I can to get you elected. Every one of them said no. Mm-hmm. And 3 of them said, you've got to be crazy to run for alderman. Why don't you do it? I don't know how to take that.
Well, Chicago politics is in par with New York politics, so I could understand people being afraid to run in a city like Chicago.
Yep.
Yeah, but we needed somebody who was an ally and not a neoliberal. And that's the fundamental challenge here. So we have a huge number of folks. We've got 11 people running in this race. And there are 11 people who are Black or mixed. And the majority of them have University of Chicago ties. All but one other, to my knowledge, is owns their home, so they're homeowners and own pretty nice homes. Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing wrong with that at all. But we've got, we have a neighborhood. South Shore is kind of the majority of the south end of the ward, 75% renters. And so when we have conversations about evictions and eviction moratoriums and landlords, they back off. The conversation is shifting because we're pushing it in a certain direction. But this is definitely the real risk that we run in this ward, is that you will have a Black alderman. Mm-hmm. And representation matters. Make no mistake. I appreciate that. But they will pursue policies that will serve the top 10% of people who have assets. So when I talk about reparations, for example, in our forums, and we've had a few of them, I get everything from I didn't think that was important, mm-hmm. to outright anger. Yeah. From one candidate told me that he thought it was disgusting that I was raising reparations.
This was a Black candidate. Another candidate told me, was this a Black candidate?
All Black, yeah.
So these are Black candidates telling you that they believe reparations are not feasible, disgusting. It's disgusting for you to be bringing this up. Even is that what you're hearing?
It's never going to happen. Okay. A Black woman said to me, I was trying to out-Black her by bringing this up.
Dang.
This is kind of a harsh response to me, just saying a debt is owed. A debt is owed federally and locally. In Chicago, there is no question. It is a quantifiable harm that's been done to freedmen around housing, absolutely, which is really where we focus. Absolutely. We say the data's out there. There's actually already been studies that have quantified between $3.3 and $4 billion, looking just at covenants in the 50s and 60s. So we know that there's money on the table. And all anybody would have to say is, oh, good idea, not really my thing, but okay. But instead, there's a tremendous amount of anger. Yeah. And no question part of it is because I'm white. But I think it's important also to have conversation about what is it about reparations that makes people so mad?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And let's stay there for a second and talk about reparations, because we've been aware of you for a while now, for several years. You came to Atlanta. You were at the NAASD summit.
At the summit.
We got to meet face to face. But really, what kind of drew me into your campaign is the fact that you have people surrounding you that are certified. They are certified reparationists. They have been in this movement just like you have.
Yeah, Do Right Grocery, Brother Marlon.
Brother Marlon Watson, who is one of the phenomenal boots on the ground organizers up there in Chicago. His name rings. You got Cynthia McDonald and Arthur Ward, who are also powerful forces in this movement. And they have circled their wagons around you and said, this is our guy. And they're not the only ones. I mean, I'm hearing, prominent leaders within our community standing up and saying, hey, we've got Gabe running against 11 other Blacks in the 5th Ward, but he's our guy. So why do you think that has been the reaction from staunch reparationists? And we can get into your position and your platform here too.
I appreciate that question. We have a public intellectual in Chicago on the radio, Salim Mawakil, who is a great friend to the reparations movement. He's a great friend to Black nationalism. He was a really dedicated advocate for the Nation of Islam for a long time. And how Salim framed it is that he sees the future as we need a bridge to be built between the progressive movement, which has failed over and over again to be an authentic ally to Black Americans, and the work that's being done, that's the good work that's always being done among Black folks who organize politically, but then don't have support. And so how Salim framed it is he said reparations will be that bridge because it is the one bona fide program. A lot of stuff that progressives come up with, it's like UBI or it's, healthcare for everyone. And the mindset is if we do, it's basically Ronald Reagan in, a red shirt. As long as we do something for everybody, we lift all boats. And that means we care about Black folks.
The Democratic platform is very much like that.
Yeah.
Right.
They know we have no boat, so that's why they keep saying that. But go ahead.
It is a lie.
Yeah,
it's a lie. And so I think this is where I stand out a little bit that I disagree. I just understand that if you do a basic power analysis, if you really care about politics, and you do read any book on theory, and they say, okay, figure out who the people most impacted, most oppressed, with with just the statistics, the numbers. And start by serving those people first. And when you realize that people don't do that, then the onion starts to peel. And so what I think is people like Marlon, Arthur, Salim Mawakil, who I just mentioned, and others recognize that this is not only that I understand all of that. And I'll tell you, when I say I understand, I have been brought along. I've been educated by many of these people as well.
Yes.
So there's definitely, and really Atlanta transformed my campaign. And I suspect that we wouldn't have the level of commitment in the Freedman community in Chicago if it weren't for Atlanta. Some of the things that were taught there, just some of the conversations I had. And I'll tell you, just the commitment to a Freedmen's Bureau became so crystal clear to me just listening to Naeem and the lecture that you guys kind of facilitated that he presented on the history. It was like lights went off. I knew that it was important to have an anchor, an institutional anchor, because that's kind of my background. I believe in micro institutions. As the alternative to what government isn't doing. But everything clicked. And then when you guys walked through the kind of omnibus legislation template,
the Repair Act. Talk about it.
Which is the holy grail. It's like you open that thing up and it's like a instruction manual for how to fix America. And I'm down there with, I believe in Marcel's dictum that you repair Black America to repair America.
Yep. Absolutely.
And y'all have actually sat down and said, well, what would that look like?
Absolutely.
And just trying to comprehend all of it changes your brain. It's like one of those biochemical things where you need new neural pathways to understand how the school part like matches the economics part, matches the, all of the pieces fit together. So, I think at some point you become fluent in the contemporary reparations movement and people recognize that you're somebody who's not looking at a book and translating, but that you're actually, you have some level of comprehension.
Thank you, because that's validation.
Absolutely.
And, John Tatishi also said he felt like he was witnessing history and witnessing the changing that is going to come to America after we did our Repair Act training. So I'm glad that it was transformative for you and your campaign.
So Gabe, I want to stick on reparations real quick, and because you're running for alderman, not a federal position or a federal elected position, right? So alderman in Chicago. I want to hear, and we go back to the Freedmen's Bureau because I think that's very important. What you're proposing, I think that's key in Chicago. I want to hear your platform for reparations and how you feel as an alderman. Assuming you get elected here, you can influence this conversation. Which direction would you want to take it?
Well, Chad, you kind of already started my analysis when you said all politics is local, and that's something I take very personally because I think that's a fact. And I don't know that everyone, it takes a depth of experience with politics to understand the extent to which that's true. So part of our platform, I'll start here. We have in the fifth ward, we have 169 city-owned parcels, vacant parcels in most cases. The city's taken them over. Some of them the city has owned since the 70s. If you know the history of the South Side, what this actually is an inventory of land that's been stolen from freedmen over the last 54 years or so. We've identified 70 of those parcels that we're giving back, and so we're just gonna we're going to reserve a bunch of those. And there's a thing, an aldermanic prerogative in Chicago, which means aldermen can kind of dispose of local property however they see fit, as long as you follow, a certain procedure. So what Marlon and I are working on, and when I talk about the Freedmen's Bureau, I should be very clear that this is the vision Marlon and I have co-constructed with the cooperation of a lot of other freedmen, is that this is an independent but linked operation. And tentatively we'll see what Marlon's thinking about his day job in a few months, but I'm really hoping he'll agree to continue to agree to take leadership. We say, look, we've got 70 parcels of land. The Obama Center is about to break ground. I've got a vacant lot up the street from me worth $350,000, a vacant lot. That's a college tuition, that's a business, that's a house. And that shouldn't be owned by the city. That should be owned by whatever Black family owned that before the city decided on, right after the civil unrest in the 60s, or when they decided that there was a war on drugs and any house they deemed a drug house they could take. One property after another taken that way, you're just going to have to establish your lineage, and you're going to go to the Freedmen's Bureau to do that.
Okay.
And so what this does is create a kind of consciousness around why lineage matters.
Yes.
And in that same space, of course, we'll have education, but we'll also be lobbying.
Yeah.
So that's probably a 501c4. And what we're doing in there is kind of combining the hyperlocal, we're literally giving you land, with federal policy, and we're connecting all those dots together. We're also going to, independent from that, be pursuing establishment of a committee that will quantify those harms we were talking about in terms of there are a myriad of policies in the city of Chicago, sometimes implemented by the city itself, that have engaged in prejudicial practices specifically against freedmen. And it's documented, we can prove it, we can quantify it, and a lot of those people are still living in Chicago. So that's a quantifiable harm, and I believe we need to pursue redress. I believe that we start with that. And so those are elements that we're not saying, I'm not putting a reparations stamp on everything I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm calling that reparative justice. But the inspiration, the framework, the way we're approaching it, it's all based on that federal reparations orientation. This is straight out of the Gear to Equality playbook.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I love that.
So let's because Evanston is a suburb of Chicago, let's talk a little bit about your cannabis policy, which I thought was interesting. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you want to see the repertory cannabis? I guess those two things collide and coincide. Can you talk to that part of your platform?
And feel free, Gabe, to say a few words about Evanston if you would like as well.
Okay, is there like is there a profanity limitation? I'm kidding.
We try to keep it clean. Keep it as clean as possible.
I'm gonna keep it completely clean, because you don't need to swear to just really articulate the level of calumny and just absolute deceit that's going on. It's the height of political cynicism, what's happening in Evanston. And the more you dig, the dirtier it is. And as far as cannabis policy is concerned, this whole state has been nothing but a con job with cannabis. They took all of the folks who are fighting for legalization in order to achieve social justice. They basically rounded up everyone out of the South Side who was doing that kind of work, got them all to sign off on this bill that they wrote, passed, and then when they announced the people who got the licenses, every single one was out of state, white-owned company, with one exception, Latino guy.
Yeah.
So nobody Black is selling weed legally anywhere in the state of Illinois. We're trying to do a little mitigation with that, but that's the bottom line. So let's begin it. So you start. This is actually a kind of microcosm of the country itself. You start on a rotten foundation. You start with chattel slavery, and then hundreds of years later, you say, well, we're going to just rising tide this stuff.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. You start with a cannabis system that's unjust, and then you say, whatever little money we're going to make on this, we're going to give you a housing grant. We're going to call it reparations. It's offensive to anybody who understands what reparations is about. And I think that's intentional. I think it's strategic. And I think it's deeply, deeply cynical. And all of those people should be in jail, because to me, that's a fraud. It's not just that the reparations part is not good, but money, you never see the money. This is reparations where you don't actually get reparations.
Yeah.
So what? That money goes to a third party. And then when it's distributed, the housing grant is distributed for repairs. In many cases, those are either friends of the sitting alderman in Evanston or the actual alderman themselves.
Wow.
And so that's the con job that the MacArthur Foundation is funding, that Cam Howard is saying is just the best things in sliced bread, that they're running all over the country talking about, we all need a piece of this.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't, to me, it's criminal.
Yeah. Let's stay right there, because you named a couple of names. I want to make sure that we're talking about specifically, Narcan and Cobra, because that's who you're talking about. IBW.
Yes.
And you are sitting squarely in a stronghold of NARC and Cobra and IBW in Chicago. And so what you're proposing is putting the Freedmen's Bureau basically at ground zero and staking claim. That's what it sounds like to me. Is that the intention? Is that what you see this doing, is kind of striking at this race-based versus, lineage-based, where we are sort of debate?
You see it exactly right. Okay. And I think the nodes, or at least some of the most important nodes of the movement moving forward will be, you just have to say California, although Los Angeles has a special place, not just in my heart, but I think strategically, Chicago and New York. And what we're doing in Chicago, and let me tell you, it takes people with the courage and the temerity of Marlon and Arthur and Cynthia to say, yeah, let's go. Because these are our neighbors. If Marlon and I want to have breakfast on 71st Street to talk about our plans, we're going to be sitting next to a Pan-Africanist. Mm-hmm. I had Conrad Worrell, for people who know about Conrad, in my 2019 election, he found out what I was doing by me talking to someone while I was eating breakfast, and he was eating breakfast at another table. And they came after me back then. I wasn't even as educated as Marlon and other folks have made. And I want to shout out to Linda Jennings, who is still affiliated with the group that will not be named, but is also a critical part of. So that's just a sign that we're working across sort of, we love everybody. But the Pan-Africanists are just barking up the wrong tree. We are absolutely at ground zero on purpose. Yeah. I'm telling you, when we say we're going to fly a Freedmen Bureau's flag on 71st Street, first, it will be a flag, and we all know what flag that will be. Yep. And second, you will be able to see the building that they're operating from, that most of the Pan-Africanist work is being done from our building. Yeah. Yeah. We already know what building we want. So it's basically it's the shot that shows where prosperity is really going to come from. Because while they're telling lies up in Evanston, we're going to be giving people parcels of land that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars because they deserve them, because lineage is what it's about, and because a debt is owed. Even on the local level, you can take that philosophy without calling it reparations. And so that model, we're hoping, I think they've given 12 grants out, 25 grand each, something like that. Yeah. It's a joke. Yeah.
The Repair Act is the model, but we have 0 minutes left. So tell the people where they can donate, how they can find your website, where they can find you on social media.
How they can get involved with the campaign and help you get in, Gabe.
Absolutely. It's Gabe4five, GABEFORFIVE. Marlon is training people for the phone bank on an ongoing basis as we speak. You can see the next training up on the site. You can go to volunteer and just say you want to do that. The donation button is right there. I should tell you real quick, I just had a call yesterday from some really ardent supporters last time in 2019 who literally said to me, a white couple, who literally said to me, we're not supporting you this time because of reparations.
Wow.
We're friends. They loved everything about my campaign in 2019. The only thing that's really changed is we're doing something specific for Black folks. And this liberal couple said, yeah, we're not interested. And they're not the only people doing that. So I'm not saying that to make anyone feel bad. But if you think because I'm white, I have a trust fund, or this is like a millionaire's experiment, we're broke. My wife and I pay rent.
Yeah.
We're going from paycheck to paycheck like everyone else. And we're trying to make this thing happen. So if you can, gabe45.com, GABEFORFIVE.com. I'm sorry we didn't have a chance to hear from Marlon, but he has really been an anchor for me. He is the genius behind all of the operations.
Is he there? Is he there? We'll make time. We will make some time for Marlon.
I don't think we knew he was on the line.
Come on.
All right, bring home the closing remarks, Marlon.
Let's
go.
Marlon. Get in here, Marlon. There he is. What's up, brother?
What's up?
we can't have you in the house and not have you say, come on now.
Hey, look. Y'all remember this?
Yes, congratulations.
That's well earned. That's well earned and well deserved. Absolutely, brother. So Marlon, we got you here. We know what a superstar you are in Chicago on the ground organizing. Talk to us about how you became involved with Gabe and why you think that Gabe is the right person for the Fifth Ward.
So first of all, I appreciate you guys. You guys are special to Black folk, to freedmen, to this reparations movement. You guys are truly special, really special. So we appreciate you guys.
Sending it back to you.
Yes, sir. So I got acquainted with Gabe back in 2019. You guys remember I started the first, I don't know if I can say the name on here.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. But I started the first ADOS chapter in the nation. In fact, I drugged those two across the concept of doing across the concept of doing boots on the ground because they didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So I kind of
they still don't. They still don't. But that's a whole other conversation.
They still don't. So I started that, and it kind of took off across the country after that. And I met Gabe during that journey. In fact, it's a funny story. When I first met Gabe, we were on opposing teams. So he was running in our ward, and I was working in an adjacent ward with a candidate who was in opposition to a friend of his who's a freedman woman. And so we ended up butting heads. But after the election, we actually met each other, talked, and we became friends. And so we're all good now. But that's where I met Gabe. And when I met him, he was talking about justice for Black folk. He was talking about gentrification and how to do housing justice. He wasn't using reparations at that time, but now he's doing that because of his acquaintance with this movement. And when Gabe came to me and told me that he wants to do, and that he wants to start a Freedmen's Bureau, I lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And and I agreed to manage the campaign. And I want people to know that there are 12 candidates in this race.
Yep. All
of them are Black. And the only person that I looked at all their websites, all their policies. The only thing Black on their websites or on their policies are the words.
Yeah.
That's it.
You say the typeface.
That's it. And with the exceptions of Gabriel, and I've asked that question in different iterations at a few different forms. And there are people that get offended and get upset and get mad about that.
Yeah.
And so, but and typically I don't, if I'm running a campaign or working on a campaign, I'm not in the camera trying to get, myself seen. But I think this is a special situation in that I want people to know, if you're apprehensive about Gabriel because he's white or because you don't know him, but you appreciate what I've done in the city of Chicago, my work, just know that I'm with him.
Yes.
Just know that absolutely. I'm working on this campaign because Gabriel is genuine.
Yeah.
It's not pandering. This is how he is, and he's the best choice for Black folk in the Fifth Ward. He really is.
Thank you for saying that, brother.
Yeah, and I saw Gabe's all his engagement. So since you are managing the campaign, if people are wanting to meet Gabe, if people want him to come to the church, or I see he's got a young people's campaign. If there are high school graduating classes or colleges that want to actually meet and hear from him, how can they get in touch with you to make that happen?
Thank you for that. You can go to gabe45.com. That's GABEFORFIVE.com. Hit volunteer, and you can get in touch with me that way. And hit while you're there, hit donate.
Yeah.
We need money. I don't think people really grasp how much money politics costs.
Yep.
This thing costs money. And we're running against folks who are establishment candidates, most of them are connected with the University of Chicago. We're fighting against big institutional money, and we're just a little grassroots campaign.
Yeah.
It's just, me, Gabe, Arthur, Cynthia, and those around the country who are helping with phone banking and donations. So we need volunteers, and we need money.
Yeah.
This thing is almost not possible without money. I hate to say impossible, but we gotta have some money. If you believe in what we're doing, you got to. So if you believe in what we're doing, you believe you trust my judgment. You believe in reparations. You believe in justice for Black people, for freedmen in particular. Please donate to this campaign what you can.
Thank you so much for that, brother. We gotta go, but Marlon, Gabe, we support you out here. We're watching you out here. We don't dabble into other people's politics. So when we see something happening, we want to hear from folks that we know on the ground that are official. Marlon, thank you for coming through and letting us know that Gabe is official, letting us know that Gabe is carrying the torch of freedmen, and he's going to do the right thing. Because all I heard Gabe saying was that freedmen are going to lead. Freedmen are going to be all through the Bureau. Yep. Freedmen are going to be all up and down the city streets of Chicago, and he's going to put freedmen first.
And this is a test for us, too. Like we say, actually vote for the candidates that are for us. So this is time for us as a people to show up.
We throw an identity out.
And not
we throwing partisanship
raising
out.
Tides.
Absolutely.
Right.
We doing agenda politics from here on out, folks. And if he's carrying our agenda, which this brother Gabe certainly is, we need to get behind him and support him. So donate, hitgabe4five.com. And we got to go to a break. But before we do, donate to us too. We need some money too. All of this is expensive, y'all. We need some money too. So hit the like button. That costs you nothing. Subscribe to the channel.
And share. Tell a friend.
Tell a friend. That also costs you nothing. But if you got it in your pockets, hit us up. Hit Gabe up. We're going to be right back.
Thank you, guys.
12th California Reparations Task Force meeting is scheduled for January 27th and 28th.
All California Reparations Task Force meetings are open to the public and welcome public comment. Amend the Mass Media Group provides coverage of all California Reparations Task Force meetings. Tune in, tap in, and testify. Reparations Now, fam.
The 12th California Reparations Task Force meeting is scheduled for January 27th and 28th.
All California Reparations Task Force meetings are open to the public and welcome public comment. Amend the Mass Media Group provides coverage of all California Reparations Task Force meetings. Tune in, tap in, and testify. Reparations Now, fam.
What's happening, family? We are back, and we are live for the second half of this season 2023 season opener premiere of Politics and Black. And we got another exciting guest coming up for you. But before we do that, I just wanted to call back to what you just watched during the break. The California Reparations Task Force will be meeting again next week.
San
Diego, Friday and Saturday, January 27th and 28th. Friday and Saturday in San Diego at San Diego State University. Details are on cjecofficial.org or CJEC's Twitter page, or you can hit up NAASD-LA, or you can hit up Friday because she keeps you in the know. But we want to see you there. Public comment starts at 9:05. Pull up, fam.
Yep. So let's keep this show rolling. We have John Conyers III, and we are glad to have him on our show. We know his iconic father.
Absolutely.
John Conyers is an entrepreneur with deep ties to the Detroit area and a unique understanding of what it takes to make a difference in Washington as the son of the longest serving Black congressman in U.S. history.
Yeah, he put in that work.
He did. He attended Morehouse College and the New School, majoring in philosophy. He went on to become an entrepreneur, working to bring money and jobs to Detroit. John is a proud co-founder of the Next Generation Board of D.D. Hirsch Mental Health Services, one of the largest free mental health, substance use disorder, and suicide prevention service providers in the country. And on that note, please welcome Mr. John Conyers. Welcome to Politics in Black.
Welcome, Mr. Conyers.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, brother.
I appreciate you all.
Yeah, we appreciate you, brother, and thank you for being here and carrying the name John Conyers and bringing that to this show, because he is definitely someone we know, we love, we revere, and we respect for his contributions and laying the groundwork and the foundation for what we do today. So thank you, and vicariously thank your father.
Yeah,
absolutely. Before we get into it, what is this book y'all have right there? I've never seen this book that has his face on the cover. What is that?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a special that I think Kieran Smith, that we got from Kieran Smith. So this is a quick, the legacy, the man, the Honorable Congressman John Conyers Jr., just talking about, some of the gargantuan achievements of your father. He did some amazing things while
it talks about legislation.
Yeah, some of the legislation.
It's a very short read, but it talks, it highlights some of the political actions that he was involved in, with some pictures.
Absolutely.
It's a good quick book.
Yeah, but we want to talk.
I'll please, when we get done with this, I'll find out about it, because I want to grab a copy, because I've never seen that before.
Well, I feel special now, right? we got one up on this Ken, so I'm feeling good. Okay, let's go. So, John, thank you for being here again. We want to dive in with you. Now, you were a candidate in the city of Detroit running for U.S. Congress. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so you ran last election cycle. So talk to us a little bit about that campaign. Talk to us about, ultimately how the outcomes came out for you, and what inspired you to run. Like, we know the name, but obviously you are your own man, you are your own person. So we want to understand your motivations as well.
Yeah. So this past cycle, I decided to put my hat in the ring to run for United States Congress. I think it's important that, the Blackest city in America have representation that is, actually from the community,
yes.
That understands, the hardship that we face, and also understands how to work and pull the levers that exist in Washington, D.C. My campaign, I kind of got started late because I was very, very concerned with not having egg on my face. I actually ran in 2018, and I didn't make the ballot. I missed by 2 signatures. So in Detroit and in Michigan, it's not like this everywhere, but in Michigan, you have to have nominating signatures, right? Nominating petitions. And you have to get enough signatures, not only of registered voters, but registered voters that actually live in the district.
Yeah, it's like that here.
Precisely. And so, because I had egg on my face when my dad endorsed me in 2018, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't make the ballot, and everybody was supporting me in that particular cycle. I was just so concerned with I may be running, but I want to make sure that I don't, disappoint anyone like last time. And so I didn't announce until I was sure that I had enough signatures. By that time, kind of the support that existed on the ground here had been consolidated. But ultimately what happened was we had a healthy number, or maybe unhealthy based on the outcome, an unhealthy number of Black candidates, and a gentleman who is not from our community, never lived in our community until he decided he wanted to run for United States Congress.
Yeah.
And we split up the vote, and he won.
Okay.
And so this is the first time in 70 years that we have not had Black representation.
Wow.
Or the city of Detroit has not had Black representation in the United States Congress. What made me run for office is, I owe everything that I've been able to do, all my successes, to the constituents of the city of Detroit and, quite frankly, around the country, for continually supporting my father and putting my father back into office. And not only that, a lot of times, or most often, with conversations like this, people talk so much about my father. I love him to death, but, I also have a mother, and she's done amazing things as well. And, I grew up in this duality where, my father was born in, he grew up in the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And so, the type of poverty he grew up in was, just abject poverty where, not only do, the black folks not have anything, the white folks don't have anything, the Jews, everybody, if you're poor, you're just poor. When my mother was growing up, she came up at a time, the proliferation of the crack epidemic, gang violence and gun violence as we know it. And she faced a much different type of poverty. It was compounded by other external factors that, my father didn't have to reckon with. And, the remnants of that existed during, my childhood. And I grew up and spent most of my time around my mother's side of the family. And so I spent a majority of my time, or a tremendous amount of my time, going between these worlds. I would be, in DC with, members of Congress and on the floor of the House or with presidents. And then, the next I would be on West Chicago and Wyoming and Detroit, around my family that, quite frankly, did not have the same level of access. And at a very early age, I recognized that, like, it wasn't that I was different. I was living just in a different circumstance. And I was seeing the difference. And I felt not only an obligation to my family, but I felt an obligation to my community in the city, but also the Black community on the whole, to make the things that I had access to accessible to them as much as possible.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And that's what we need. We need more of our candidates to feel a responsibility to our communities and to act on that responsibility.
Yeah, we all can't move out. That's not how this works, y'all.
Absolutely.
Everybody can't move out and leave.
So John, I want to jump right in, right? Because your father did something monumental with HR 40 in keeping the reparations conversation alive in Congress, right? 1989.
And it originally was called Bill HR 1865, to recognize full emancipation.
Absolutely. So, it's 1989, that bill's introduced, and it really has been the shining light in the darkness around us, keeping the reparations conversation alive. Now, however, we know over the years, over the decades, that bill has taken some changes, it's taken some hits. It's been revised a few times, and obviously your father is no longer with us. So now we have Sheila Jackson Lee, who is steering that piece of legislation. So I want to go to you. I want to go to your campaign, your past campaign, because I quickly went to your website. I didn't see anything about reparations. So I want to ask you your position. Do you have a position on reparations, and where do you fall in the legacy of John Conyers Jr.?
Well, of course, I have a position on reparations. I support reparations, but I also think what's the proper language? When we're focusing on specific issues, like reparations is an issue that obviously I think would benefit America on the whole in terms of the economic impacts, but also it impacts and is targeting a specific group of people. And I think sometimes when we have these conversations, people forget that, like, as a candidate, that is a priority to me. But also, like, if you're going to my website to find out, what I care about and what the overwhelming majority of folks are talking about, reparations is not a priority to them, right? And so, of course, it's a priority to me. It's something that I intend to champion. I do champion. I talk about. I'm very aware of the changes that have been made to the bill, but it's not on my website simply just because, like, when you're looking at donors around the country, or you're even if you're talking to Black folks, they're more concerned with the job prospects than they are with reparations, right? You just have to be frank. That's why it's not on my website. As it relates to reparations and HR 40 in its current iteration, I do take issue with some things, specifically, the commission and their, being compensated for being the people that are evaluating how we go about disseminating or giving out reparations to descendants of American descendants of slaves, right? I don't think that should be the case, because in essence, they're kind of getting reparations to decide if we should get reparations, right? So I don't think that I don't know that is the thing that we should be doing.
So if you make your way into the halls of the U.S. Congress, what would be your steps? What would you take to either change HR 40, or would you be bold enough to introduce new legislation? Because if so, we got something you need to read.
I've had these conversations with Sandy Darity, who's a friend of mine. He's like one of the foremost scholars.
Absolutely.
He's a friend of ours.
Shout out Dr. Darity at Kirsten.
So Dr. Darity,
Yeah.
Dr. Darity is a friend of mine. And we've had conversations offline about HR 40. And we've talked about who else? I can't remember the Congresswoman's name, but she has another reparations legislation, right? There was another one that
Barbara Lee. It's not really reparations. Yeah. It's more.
I thought it was a younger, not Barbara Lee. I thought it was a younger Corey. Is it Corey
Bush?
Corey Bush? I think Corey Bush had one.
I haven't seen anything reparations related from her, but I could be wrong here.
I could be wrong also.
Yeah.
I'm the first one to admit when I'm wrong. So that's not a problem. I just thought that he and I had that conversation. But in whichever case, I think that for me, one of the first things that I would like to do is really, because he told me that there have been major changes to my father's legislation. So for one, I would want to go back and look at the number of changes that have been made or what changes have been made since my father left office. And then kind of evaluate from there how I would, proceed forward.
Okay.
It's not, obviously the first thing I pointed out and the first thing I take issue with, to me, is the major issue is, there's two issues. One, obviously people getting compensated to be on the commission. I don't agree with that. The second piece is that the organizations that are getting 2 seats on the commission can just have one other person that is not from their organization meet, and then they can go about making decisions.
Correct.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we can name those organizations. That's NARC and Cobra.
I gotta be a little more.
I understand. That's why I'm here, brother. That's why I'm here to help you with that. Absolutely.
I think that presents a conflict as well.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like my jumping off point, but unequivocally, the measures and the issues that my father supported are issues that I support. Whether you go from, it's not just reparations, it's universal health care. If we're talking about Humphrey Hawkins' full employment legislation that he championed for years and years, especially as we move towards automation. He was really, really big on investing in, our citizens and creating job opportunities that are provided by and guaranteed by the federal government.
Absolutely.
Which I think is not something that is, impossible, because we've done it before. That's where
we do it at war. If we can do it in war, we can do it in peace.
Yeah,
that is correct. And so there's a bunch of stuff. I forget the name of the bill, but there's some stuff that Jesus, I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But there's some things that other things that my father introduced that have lapsed or have people have forgotten about. And that would be one of my first orders of business, is kind of going through, because he was so ahead of his time, going through all the legislation that he considered, and
Yes. No, I thank you for saying that, brother, because one of the things that has bothered me about this whole HR 40 conversation is that it is perverting your father's legacy in its current form. It has been written in such a way, and you touched on a few things, but one of the major things that you didn't touch on, I want to make sure that you have this in your quiver, is one of the revisions, I think it was April 21, they took out what's called the Federal Advisory Committee Act. It's the FACA. So that act applies to federal advisory boards and commissions, and it basically requires them to have transparent meetings,
with the American
transparent deliberations, so we can see what's happening, and then have ongoing transparent reporting, so we know what they're working on and what we should expect, right? But taking that out, and then keeping the compensation in, and then changing the bill in other ways that pretty much ensure it's going to fail any sort of legislative path. That's why we had 200 co-sponsors and we couldn't even get a floor vote with Pelosi as the leader of the House.
Yeah.
Now we got a McCarthy as the Speaker of the House, so the floor vote becomes even more of a unlikelihood. But that has been one of the things that has upset me the most, because I know your father's work. I know how hard he championed for us, and the current bill, HR 40, is a perversion of his legacy. And so I'm glad to hear that one of the first things you're going to do is look back and see, WTF, what's been going on here, and how do we fix it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, it's something that, I have, if you want to talk about the first question you asked me, what led me here. In leading me in my path to getting into politics, because to be quite frank and transparent, I had no desire to run for office for a very, very long time. But as I got older, I am a unique case, right? My father and I are unique cases in that a 61-year-old man had a member of Congress had his first child at 61, right? And so I should be, based on how old my father was, his son should be older in age. Or my entire life, our entire time together, people thought I was his grandson, right? And so I am uniquely positioned to kind of bridge this gap in history, because we think about, MLK. I have a 25-year-old cousin that was afraid of MLK for a very long time, because she just had this idea in her head that he was this perfect person, and she was afraid to read quotes and all this other stuff. And I am uniquely positioned to kind of bridge this gap and kind of tell the history, like even MLK Day, how so many of our people talk about MLK Day as if the United States government gave it to us, as if my father did not fight for it for 15 plus years, right? As if he had to go and he sought the permission of Mrs. King to introduce the legislation before he even did it.
Yes.
Right. And he fought for it. And people act like America gave it to us, like as if Ronald Reagan didn't just hear, damn, like go away. You know what I mean? Like we act like that is not really how it came about.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's incumbent upon me to kind of clarify, and incumbent upon folks that understand to clarify the history for a younger generation of folks to understand the fight is not over. It will never be over, because there's always if there is good happening, then there is a negative force at work. And if there's a negative force at work, there's also a good force at work. That is the balance. And you have to remain vigilant. If you want to, it's not just enough to maintain, you want to continue to make progress. In order to make progress, you can't just rest on your laurels and think, well, we have this, so it's always going to be this way, because there's someone lurking that is ready to take whatever you have away from you.
Yeah, no, brother, that's absolutely right. Thank you for saying that. So you ran in 22. Unfortunately, that campaign was unsuccessful. 2018. So what are your plans going?
22.
What are your plans?
22.
What are your plans going forward? Are we making another stab at this? Are we?
How can we help you?
I would. Yes, I would love your support. I'm considering another run at it. I am fundraising right now, and that will kind of determine how I decide to move forward this first quarter. It's off cycle. And so, I haven't made a decision as to whether I'm going to get back into the race or if I'm going to wait, a couple more cycles. But right now I'm looking at it, and, if I'm able to, get those, I want to build a grassroots campaign as much as I want to raise the large dollars. Right. And so it's important for me to have the folks that can subscribe to the, the campaign and donate $5 to $20 a month. Right. And so I'm considering it. I think again, it's important to have Black representation, and it's important. And I try to make this distinction that, a lot of folks will say that, me running is nepotism, but it's not. If it was nepotism, I would be in the seat. I've been a member of Congress since 2018. Yeah. My dad can't give me this seat. Nepotism is the ability to give someone something just based on your relation to them. Right. This is not nepotism. And I spent a tremendous amount of time in Washington, D.C., learning from my father. I've interned at different embassies. I have, written his committee questions, sat in private meetings, sat in bipartisan meetings with him, private bipartisan meetings with him. So it's not just a matter of running on a name. It's a matter of understanding it. Even if I've never held elected office before, I feel confidently in saying that there's not a member of Congress that represents Detroit that is more that knows that legislative body better than me, that has more congressional experience. They may have more legislative experience, but in terms of the maneuvering back channel experience, there's no one that has more experience than me. And so I'm really focused on, this first quarter, raising as much money as possible. And then, if it's a number that, my team and my staff says that, like we can build upon this, then, I would be a fool not to, seriously consider running again.
There goes
So
that money again. We need money.
And we
need money.
We do
for our
social
politicians,
media
for our
very
candidates.
well. So for our followers, please tell them a website where they can find you.
Yep.
Let's get your social media followers up. Give us those social media handles. And once you make that decision, we can have you here again. But we can also talk offline about ways that we can help you.
Absolutely. So all my social media is the same. It's just Conyers, my last name, and then the number 3 spelled out, THREE. And then the website is just Conyers, FOR, Congress.com, ConyersForCongress.com. And you can just donate right there, and you can see, what I'm about, what the campaign's all about. My big thing, as we, I don't know how much more time we have, but my big thing is, aside from reparations, is, housing and the economy.
Yeah.
As much as my father talked about social justice, one thing he talked to me about privately was economic justice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And economic justice, goes hand in hand with like home ownership, renting, job prospects. All those things are really, really important. And so those are my priorities, because, when I lived in LA, I lived in a rent control department, which was great, but we're not allowed to have rent control in Michigan. And on a federal level, that's something I would like to examine. Why that is, because people here are getting pushed out. I firmly believe that in the blackest city in America, we should be building Black wealth from the ground up, not trying to bring in, folks from outside to make a bigger investment than the government is making in the people that have already been here.
Amen, brother. Well, we're going to have to bring you back to have that conversation, because I know there's a lot that your father worked on. It sounds like you're trying to pick up that torch and run with it, brother. So we're going to bring you back, and hopefully we can get your donation, get your Cash App up, get your donations up, so we can see you back in this race, because we need to fix that federal piece of reparations legislation. And, sounds like you understand that as well. So thank you, John, for being here.
Thank you both for having me. I appreciate you so much, and you all have a great evening.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, brother.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Well,
all right, that's another one.
We got to wrap up. Producers are telling us wrap. But before we do, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the super chat. We'll still take the super chat even after we get off here, or hit the Cash App or the Venmo, $NAASDLA. And one more time, one more reminder, Friday, Saturday, next week in San Diego, the California Reparations Task Force is meeting again. And they're talking about dollar bills, y'all. So you might want to tune in, give some public comment, let them know what you're thinking. It's going to happen. Get involved. Thanks, fam.
The 12th California Reparations Task Force meeting is scheduled for January 27th and 28th.
All California Reparations Task Force meetings are open to the public and welcome public comment. Amend the Mass Media Group provides coverage of all California Reparations Task Force meetings. Tune in, tap in, and testify. Reparations Now, fam.